Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to read another article that Dad wrote during the 1979 season. We've been doing this series with Kelley. All of us, if we've listened to the Becoming Earnhardt series, we've heard some of these, but Kelley hasn't. And this is Dad's third article in the season. He writes this, or it's actually released on April 26th of 1979, and out of the Daily Independent. From Kannapolis. Kannapolis.
A couple days before Dad's birthday.
So I found these in the, I believe they were in the Grand National scene. I didn't use any Grand National scenes during, some of these articles in this scrapbook don't have like
where they're from, right?
You can't tell where they're from or who wrote them, but, you can tell who wrote most of them, but I found these not only, I think they were in the scene, but I think they were also in the Daily Independent in Kannapolis, and then they ran in a couple of other motorsports publications that were more regional. And so it was kind of floating around for a lot of people to have access to, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So this is the third installment of the bi-monthly series, and we'll just get right to it. Talk about coming back down to earth in a hurry. One Sunday, I'm in victory circle at Bristol, and the next week I can't even make the starting field during the first day of qualifying at Darlington. I thought we had enough problems at the Rebel race at Darlington, but then we went to Martinsville and never did get everything right on the race car. It handled fine, but we just kept getting beat off the corners. Just never could get everything dialed in. Boy, have we got to have it all together for this month. We start May with the Winston 500 at Talladega, and then we wind up with the World 600 at Charlotte. Did you know that we actually race more miles in competition during May than any other month? It's definitely not the time to have problems. We had the longest and most serious team meeting that we've ever had Monday morning after Martinsville. We get 1 weekend off, and then it's May. Our guys have got a lot of work to do because we all came out of that meeting agreeing that May would be a good time for us to win another race. So back to Darlington. That old racetrack was giving me a fit when we first got there. Most people have trouble with the third and fourth turns, but not me. Now, we have to remember, this is when the racetrack was flipped.
It was opposite, right?
Yeah, so the big corner, that's 1 and 2, that was 3 and 4.
Okay.
All right, so he's talking about that turn. He says, most people have trouble with the big corner, but not me. I couldn't get through turns 3 and 4, which is now
1 and 2.
1 and 2. So, I could get through 3 and 4 fine, he says. But I was having my hands full down in 1 and 2. That's the top of the egg, the small corner. It was frustrating at first, but after I talked with a lot of the other drivers, it started getting better. Donnie Allison was a tremendous help. He watched me from the top of one of the trucks, and then he gave me some tips on how to get through that end of the speedway. Donnie Allison, new Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
His advice
That's interesting, like you thinking about him watching another competitor and giving that advice.
Donnie?
Another driver even.
Young rookie.
At
Darlington, let's remember too, at Darlington, there was like a rookie orientation. There was a big focus on the rookies when they went to Darlington. Darlington is still a very difficult, intimidating racetrack, but back then, I think it was kind of considered so odd and so challenging and narrow that there was this uber focus on the rookies when they got there from all the veterans, right? They would have like a orientation.
Probably because they wanted to help them.
They didn't want them.
They didn't want them to mess their race up.
Right. Yeah. They're like, oh,
that
man.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
They could be a problem because there's only a couple lanes on the racetrack, right? So he says he watched me from the top of one of the trucks, and then he gave me some tips on how to get through that into the speedway. His advice made me change the way I was driving Darlington a little, and we made one spring change to his suggestion. So he's not only helping him with the driving line, but helping him with the setup, which is pretty incredible. By race time, we were ready. Jake Elder and the guys had our old car running good when the race started. I led a few laps, and I'd already figured out that I could run with just about anybody. And that was a good feeling, too, until the engine let go. I was running third when the rod broke in the motor, and it was still early in the race. We were a little slow on changing engines because they could change motors during the races.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that started from reading these articles, the changing motor thing is a fun conversation in the Becoming Earnhardt because they're changing them in minutes.
Wow.
Incredible. Darrell Waltrip's team blows a lot of motors in the second half of the year, and they're like changing them under 20 minutes. And Bud Moore's complaining because it takes the Fords longer because they have to take the exhaust off before the motor comes out, and the exhaust is 200 degrees, and everybody's getting their hands burnt. They can't touch it.
Got it.
So it takes them about 30 minutes. But apparently changing motors started when it ramped up, I suppose, when Cale Yarborough's trying to win 3 in a row, trying to win 3 championships in a row in 75, 6, and 7, or 6 and 7 and 8. Yeah, 6, 7, and 8. He won 3 in a row. And Junior Johnson and his boys were changing motors when they break in the middle of the race, and that's kind of made it a normal thing. But
when did that get outlawed?
Really, not too long after this, because Richard Petty, who's in the middle of the 1979 championship battle, says in the articles, if we break a motor this year, even though we're going for the championship, I'm not changing it because I think it's foolish.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's get back to the article. We were a little slow on changing engines, and I must have been out about 35 laps when we got back onto the racetrack. Even then, the car was running exceptionally good. Hey, I even made up a lap, but we were so far out of it at that point it didn't make much difference. Anyway, going back to the race like that let me get some more time on the Darlington track, and it made me feel good too because our guys in the crew didn't get disgusted and give up just because the motor blew. When I got back home from Darlington, people were still calling to congratulate me about winning Bristol. I don't know how many calls and letters I got, but I even got a mailgram from the guys in the Marshall Tucker Band.
Oh!
How about that?
I used to have their 8-track.
I tried to take a little time off around Easter weekend. I went down to Santee Cooper fishing, but the wind was so bad we wound up coming back home to Lake Hickory. We caught 25 crappie in the rain and did some nightcat fishing over in another lake and got around 40 pounds using cut shad for bait. He's very specific.
He is specific.
But I never was totally relaxed. I had one big thing staring me right in the face. I had a roof to put on my mother's house.
Oh.
Listen, he says, if I had to be a carpenter, I'd starve to death. Up and down those dang ladders, half-inch sheets of plywood are heavy. I didn't hit my finger but twice, and that was on the first day, and I swore I wouldn't hit it after that. And it worked. But I don't ever want to have to roof another house.
So he was literally doing it himself.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I remember, Joe Whitlock, who probably helped him write this article. Mm-hmm. Joe had this tree in his backyard he wanted cut down, and Dad goes over there and cuts it down.
Yeah.
He could do anything.
Yeah, he definitely was.
He was a worker.
Talented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too, when some of these other articles we've read, our grandmother Martha is consistent, like in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So it's just
it's
cool about this family element and it coming together and the support that all the family, know that some of the Becoming Earnhardts have had Kathy and Kay and some of those things, and you can just really tell that they were all there with that support and weaving it in, right? So personally and professionally.
All right, we'll continue. There's a lot to say about Martinsville. Richard Petty spent a lot of time with me telling me how to get around, but the car just wouldn't come off the corners. The best thing about Martinsville was the crowd around our trucks after the race. I gave away exactly 1,000 postcards, and I must have signed half of them. I know it was 1,000 because that's how many are in one box, he said. But it's May racing now. I'm looking forward to going back to Talladega. I like the draft, and I like that big speedway. Man, I finished 12th down there last year in a so-so car, and we've got the Buick that led Daytona ready to go. We had some changes in it, and I think we'll be better than in Daytona. We might just do okay at Talladega. Nashville's coming up too, and I've run pretty good there in some sportsman races. I got second and a third at Nashville the last couple of times there, and Jake's got the ticket for setting up the car for that track. Dover's after that, and that's a whole new ball game. Dover will be a total surprise for me. And then it's Charlotte and the World 600. I'll be back home. Charlotte's always been good to me. Well, it's never been bad to me, he says. Let me put it that way. Charlotte's special to us. That's where the shop is and where all the guys live. Everybody I know will be at the World 600. It might just be a very good way for us to finish the month. And so that's it. He's maybe even a third into the season, got a win. He's feeling great.
And so do you think he's not ever been to Dover?
I don't think so, no.
Right,
Yeah,
because
Dover
in
been
78,
no.
how many races?
Yeah, he
yet
hadn't
did
ran
run,
Dover
right?
yet.
Yeah.
Dover's pretty intimidating. You drive down the straightaway and you kind of drop into a hole. It's like 2 stories. You drive off into the bottom of the corner. And I imagine with those cars and the big old springs, and they had a lot of delta, a lot of movement.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. And so, anyways, and he was, we know that he goes to the World 600, and he has a hell of a race with Richard Petty for second.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so he does end the month really on a high note, in front of all of his family.
Yeah.
You remember?
Oh, that was our gig. That was
Right.
one of our gigs between there and
Yeah.
North Wilsonboro. Those were where we set up, right,
So
from a family standpoint.
Right. So there was a hill in
On the road course.
on the road course where the road course is exiting the infield out onto the Turn 1 NASCAR. And so coming around that corner, basically where I think Harvick spun Chase Elliott a couple years ago.
Okay.
There's right at the top of the turn there, that final turn on the road course. It's a high hill, and we and the Uries and the Earnhardts and everybody would park their trucks up there, and we had these wooden scaffolds that built in the back of the trucks that you climb on top of, and all the kids were rolling these plastic, cars down the hill racing.
I mean, we literally all went. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle, everybody.
Charlotte was a
All
big
of us.
deal.
It was a big deal.
That was before
was
the
fun. We looked forward
condos
to
and
it.
all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was fun.
I imagine, in 1979, that little area was full of all Dad's family and friends and all the Uries. And
The other thing that was cool to me about this is weeks after the win, still relishing in those moments because you had to, use a phone to call someone,
Yeah.
they didn't have texting and whatnot. So the instantaneous.
mailgrams.
Yeah, the instantaneousness of, like, today I feel like we win and you're so focused on the next weekend and you've got so many means to, tell everybody what you think that you tell everybody what you think really quick and then it's done, right? So in that time frame, you're still getting things. That's really cool.
Weeks later, yeah.
To really be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's number 3 out of 5. Hope you enjoyed it. And, we'll see you for the next one. Hey, if you like that video, like and comment below. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss another piece of Dirty Mo Media content.